And we're live.
There we go.
All right. Episode 101 of Entreprogrammers, which is pretty
I know I
amazing.
missed 100.
Yes.
I cried.
Yes, but
And
you were
then I
busy doing
introduced
awesome
the next
things
one.
like JS Remote Conf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who wants to introduce our guest today?
Go for it, Josh.
All right. Well, I got an email from our boss. Me, Chuck, and me, Derek, and John all used to work at the same company, Trackabout, and got an email about skydiving last week. Our boss Larry saw the show notes and emailed me and said he's got some skydiving things that he's experienced, and we thought it would be fun to have him on. So, Larry, good to see you. And I see that you're muted and in true fashion there. Yep.
I like to be a good voice conferencing citizen.
We talk over each other here, so.
Thanks so much for the invite. I appreciate it. I feel like I haven't seen you guys in a while, and Chuck, nice to meet you.
It's been like
You too.
almost 5 years since we've seen each other.
Long time.
Oh,
Your code is still doing things, Derek.
I bet it is.
We still have some albacore, Ruby, Rake
Nice.
stuff that we're dragging along. Yeah, well, thanks for the invite. I'm the fifth wheel here, so I'll fifth. That's five, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll just I don't know what you guys how much you guys want me to participate, or if you want to kick me out at some point, that's fine too. I'll have to hop off at some point for a board meeting, but yeah, really happy to join. I hope I can contribute.
Well, let's dig right into the whole skydiving experience, because I think it was John that was talking about doing that, or Josh, and John was talking about how he's working to get himself over the fear of skydiving by doing all this research and stuff, and the whole subject of getting over fears is pretty important for all of us as we continuously do new things that scare the crap out of us trying to build our businesses.
Absolutely.
So I want to hear about your skydiving experience, because that's something that I wanted to do for the longest time when I was in high school and college, but never got to do it, and probably will never get to do it at this point.
So, John, this is amazing that you're approaching skydiving, given what I know about your history of air travel.
Yeah. I was just about to say that you're probably surprised by that. 'Cause when I was at Trackabout, gosh, I was. I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but I basically was like terrified. So like I think we had the first was it
Our first
TA?
DEF CON. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like I was sweating it like 3 months ahead of time when I knew I had to get on a plane potentially.
Wow. This was the one to Orlando, right? We all went down to Orlando.
I think the first one I missed because it was in was it in
Pittsburgh? The first one might have been in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Okay.
You had, like set up audio equipment and stuff for me to like virtual commute. But yeah, I was pretty scared. But yeah, in the last probably what has it been? Has it been 2 years? Maybe about 2 years or so. I've pretty much I had to actually what triggered this was I had this panic attack for a while. And I was almost like completely debilitated. Like I was in the tub, like like soaking, like just not able to function in the world. Like yeah, it was just crazy. Like for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I think. And I would just barely make it through through work and
This
stuff.
is in anticipation of a trip you had to take, you mean?
No, it just happened to me one day. I don't know what even triggered it.
Okay.
But I started to figure out. I was listening to all kinds of people talking about how to get over panic attacks, and then this one thing clicked that made sense to me, which was to basically just like embrace your fear instead of like, because your brain you try and like avoid, you push it out of your head, and I'd get on airplanes and I'd try and ignore everything going on, ignore the sounds, and just like play a game or something, like distract myself. And I was doing the same thing with the panic attack, and then I heard someone say, well, just try face it as much as you like, try to feel as much terror as you possibly can in your body. and
Ask and the endorphin rush and the
yeah, just like bring it on, right? Like what's the worst that you could do? And I did that, and I mean it was almost an instant cure. Like all of a sudden I was just like.
Hey.
And then I started applying that to, I mean, I was scared to go on planes, obviously. I was scared to go on roller coasters. all these fears I started overcoming with the same kind of, like, it didn't, like, there was a few different things that I sort of developed as I was trying to conquer all the fears that I had, but one of the main ones was just like facing things head on and just like letting yourself, because then you realize it's not that bad. Like the fear, that old cliche of the thing you have fear most is fear itself, and it's so true, because like once you realize that taking the most amount of fear into your body as possible is actually not that bad. It's like you live past it, then what really do you have to fear? So
it's interesting that you say that about the way you handled getting on an airplane and whatnot, because I do the exact same thing when I get tattoos. I've got 4 or 5 tattoos and some pretty big ones, and a couple have been excruciatingly painful, like toward the back of my knee and up under my armpit here. I mean, it feels like they're just ripping parts of your body off as they're tattooing some of those sensitive skin areas. And my whole approach to dealing with the pain of getting tattoos is literally just to focus on nothing but the pain. I don't let any other source of input get in my way. I'm focused 100% just on that pain right there in that moment. And
this explains why we're all entrepreneurs.
It does.
It also explains why Derek was
flip it off, right?
Because Derek is part of a biker gang.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's all the way
Tattoos under his armpits.
John, I feel like your parachuting is just an extension of your fear of not wanting to be inside of airplanes.
Yes.
It completely follows logically from that fear.
Let me out.
There we go.
So I can talk a little bit about that story. So I think this was 2001, and I hadn't even started with Trackabout yet. I would be about a year before I would start with Trackabout. I've been there forever. And it's just one of those things that's on everybody's bucket list. Everybody's like, oh, I want to jump out of a plane. So okay. So I was taking a long vacation, driving back east to visit family, and threw the mountain bike on top of the car. I found a mountain biking festival along the way. I'm going to do that. I got the tent. I'm going to camp out every day, and I'm just going to do things. I'm just going to find my way back east. There was no Google Maps at the time. Actually, I was working for Rand McNally of all places, doing their .com. So I had a Rand McNally laptop with a serial port connected GPS interface glued to my dashboard, and I'm running like Rand McNally Street Finder, which is basically Google Maps of yore, and navigating my way east. And it has like a POI, points of interest database, and I'm just looking for things. So I'm like, well, what else can I do on this trip? Like I was expecting I was going to drive up and down the Finger Lakes and like try some of those wineries and just what's on the way. Niagara Falls. I hit that. I got a fun story about Niagara Falls. And I saw this. There was like an airport that has skydiving lessons, and they were having a festival, and it was going to be too late to go to the festival, the skydiving festival. But this place annually runs a 6-day skydiving festival where it's like people come from around the world to basically jump out of exotic airplanes, and so they're really well known for this. They're really well known for their skydiving training courses. And I'm like, well, what better place to take a dive than this place? So it was in Indiana. It wasn't that far out of Chicago, and I show up in the morning, first thing in the morning after camping out at some campground somewhere, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? What do you offer? What do you got? You couldn't Google. Nobody had websites like you could learn anything those days. So I got there. And they said, well, there's 3 programs. Most people do one of the first 2. I'm like, what are they? Say, well, there's a what do they call it? Static line jump, where basically you're hooked to the plane, and they push you out, and it pulls your ripcord instantaneously, and then you're parachuting. You're just in the parachute. Okay, that sounds lame. All right, next one is tandem jump, which most people do, and that's where you get strapped to the back of a dive master. You're like some puppet, attached to his back, and he does all the work, and you're just like along for the ride. It's like he's doing everything for you. I'm like, okay, I guess that's what's the other option? They said, well, we have this thing called accelerated free fall, and I'm thinking like they're going to shoot you out of a cannon straight down. Accelerated free fall. So they said, yeah, it's like it's the first course if you're going to learn skydiving for real. Like this is course number 1, and I'm like, okay, so what do you do? It's like a half day of learning. You're in instructor-led training. They show you a bunch of videos. They show you how to pack a chute. They take you through really intro 101 to skydiving, and then the jump. You go up in the plane with 2 jump masters, and they jump with you, but you have to do everything yourself. And I'm like, that's the one for me. I'm like, I want the full. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all the way. Like, I need to have the full-on experience. So cool. So there was a whole bunch of people there, and only 2 of us were doing accelerated freefall. Everybody else was doing what they're like. I want to get in, I want to get out, I want to have the experience and go home. And I'm like, I'm going to spend the whole day here. I'm on vacation. So it was a half-day course, and like I said, all the videos and some instructor-led training and all that business. And then we had lunch, and then it started to rain. And they're like, sorry, can't jump in the rain. Gonna have to wait and see if we get a clearing. So it was me and this other girl, and she was cute, and I was single, and she was completely disinterested in me. But we hung out all day, and just waited around and watched more videos, and just waited for a clearing, a chance to go. There's no smartphones these days. We got a flip phone. There's nothing to do except read a magazine. Gosh, remember those days? Doctor's offices were so different back then. So
just said, no, I don't remember those days.
So we waited all day, literally until about sunset. The sun's starting to go down, and they're like, we got to break in the rain. We got to break in the rain. Do you guys want to jump? I'm like, yes, let's do it. They're, okay, let's flip a coin. All right, Larry, you're first. I'm like, all right, let's go. Get in the jumpsuit. Get the whole thing on. Get in the Cessna. And they take off, and the door's open the whole time. And it's like, it's cold. It's like really cold. This was August, but still, like the wind's blowing through. Everything's really loud. I got a helmet on. They gave me the goggles. I have this altimeter like on my chest, like on a triangle mount thing, so I can like look down and tell the altitude. I know where my brakes are. I know where my ripcord is, my spare ripcord. They get me up in the plane. Everybody's like crouched down in the plane. It's super loud. Can't hear a damn thing. I got a radio in my ear and a strap to my strap over here. It's like a radio, two-way communication radio, so they can talk to me. And then we get to altitude, and they're like, okay. And my heart's like beating out of my chest. I'm like, why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. Like, what the hell did I think was going to happen? I think I have this ability to kind of like push things out of my head that I don't want to think about. And up until this point, like I was cool. I was cool as a cucumber until they're like, let's go. Then all of a sudden, like, boom, like adrenaline just hits me, and my heart's going boom, 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 boom. I start to sweat, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? So, it's too late. They're like, let's go. So, all right, let's do it. So the first guy steps out onto the wing, and there's like a little platform. He puts his feet on there, and then I have to get like 1 foot on that platform and 1 foot in the plane, and I'm holding on to the wing here, and the wind, you put your head out, and the wind just hits you in the face.
Oh yeah.
It's like, holy crap! Hold on tight. And then the other jump master is kind of inside the plane, and then pretty much it's like 1, 2, 3, go, and then you just kind of let yourself, go. You just jump, and then my brain stopped working. It's like the sensations take over, and your brain. The only thing your brain is doing is going, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
I'm gonna die.
Yeah. And the jump masters are like holding on to loops on my belt or something, and like I'm aware of their presence. Generally speaking, I'm aware that I'm like hurtling towards the earth. The wind is whipping. It's so loud. It's just so loud in your ears. And they I'm trying to, like, I don't even think I could remember a damn thing they taught me. You're supposed to do certain things at certain altitudes. This is part of the training. Some altitude you check this. I don't remember. It's been 14 years. At some altitude, you do a check left, check right. You just do this periodically to make sure everybody's cognizant, completely incognizant. And then you get to a certain altitude and you pull the ripcord. And I did none of this. I completely lost the train of what I was supposed to do. Like, I was just like, I'm falling. And then one of the guys, he's like giving me the motion, like, it's time, you better pull the ripcord. I'm like, okay. So I pull the ripcord. And then, it's like the wedgie of a lifetime. Just like, it's under you. Just, and then you're just like, ugh. It just, it slows you down so fast. And then it's quiet. And you're just kind of like,
that worked.
You're just floating. And these jump masters, these guys do this all day long. They're like, they're just gone. They're diving. Like I was watching these guys do some jumps before the rain came, and they would literally, like, here's the ground. They'd be falling until like here, and then like deploy the chute and go, and then land. Like as close as they can get to the ground, that's what they loved to do. And that was just, it was mad. It was mad how low they were before they deployed their chutes. So, but I'm up in the air, and it's quiet, and you've got these two pulleys, and you can like pull this one and kind of turn this way, and you pull this one, and you kind of turn this way. And the rain had stopped, and the sun was setting. And I turn myself west, and I'm looking at the sunset, and I'm looking at rainbows, and I'm looking at the field, and I'm just like, just floating through the air. And then I'm like, I'm gonna have to land somewhere. I'm like, okay. So they have this weather vane, whatever they call it. It's a really big one. It's this huge triangle, and it tells you which way the wind's coming. You want to be going into the wind. You don't want to be landing with the wind, because you'll become a human crayon as you hit the ground. So you want to go into the wind. So I'm trying to remember, okay, well, if the arrow's pointing this way, that means the wind is going this way, or is it going this way? And I'm like trying to figure out which way the wind blows. So eventually I'm coming in, and I'm thinking, like, so what did they say about landing? I don't remember. Like, and I'm cognizant, and I'm thinking now. Like, I'm thinking again. I've had lots of time to kind of glide around and enjoy the view, and I didn't have a camera at the time. I wish I had. And I'm just thinking, okay, I know I'm supposed to like flare my chute, like you get like one shot at the air brakes to slow yourself down before you touch down. And I remembered them saying there was some height you're supposed to do this at, but I'm terrible at judging height. Like, how far is 20 feet, 40 feet? I have no idea. Like, I know how big my foot is, but I don't know how far like 40 feet looks, especially when you're coming down like this. So I just, and the whole time I'm like, I hadn't heard a single thing in my radio the whole time. It's so loud. The wind is so loud. It's just static in my ear. And I'm like, well, I don't know. It looks like I'm close enough to the ground. Let me pull the brakes. I hit the brakes. The thing flares out. It kind of pulls you back a bit. And then I heard something in the radio, and what I heard was somebody say, "No!" So I pulled them too high.
Oh,
and
no.
then they start coming in fast, and I'm like,
Oh, no.
Geez. I'm like, like, I can't, like, it's not working anymore. You get like one shot, And so I start coming in. I'm coming in hot. I'm like, I'm gonna splatter. It's on a field, so that's okay. So I'm just like, I'm gonna hit the ground running. So I just start like moving my legs. I'm like, I'm gonna run. I'm gonna do it. And I'm like 1, 2, and then it's just like yard sale, everywhere. I'm like all wrapped up in the chute. But I'm like, all right, I'm either in shock or I'm uninjured. I'm not sure which. It looks like I'm uninjured. So I get up. I'm like, yeah, everything's still working. Okay, so I start gathering up the chute. Jump master comes running out of the hangar, and he's like, or they brought him around like a golf cart, and he comes running out to me. He's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." He goes, "Okay, so we didn't talk about landing."
Oh, we didn't talk about landing.
Oh my gosh.
He's like, "I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened. We forgot the unit on landing."
Have you seen Indiana Jones in I think it's the Last Crusade? It's the fly yes, land no.
But you did sign the waiver, right? Did you sign the waiver?
Signed the waiver. It's all on me, man. Yeah. So that's the story. And then it got dark real fast after that. I got in my car and I drove off to the next campsite, and that was my day. That's my skydiving story.
Cool.
Wow. So what was the sensation like? Like when you first let go, was it a strong falling sensation? Like
when you jumped out of the plane?
Yeah, that was one thing we were talking about.
Yeah, it's obviously it's a weightless sensation, which is the first and only time I've ever had the sensation. You're falling. It's free fall. Your heart goes up to your throat. But pretty quickly you're like, things stabilize, and you're like, okay. You just feel like the wind is whipping by you, and you're weightless. You're falling. I don't know how you can describe it. You could go to those those practice places, the jump places where they have a huge fan on the floor and you kind of float around.
Yeah, I've done one of those before, and that's nothing. I mean,
I wouldn't think there'd be a lot like it.
Yeah, I got in there and I leaned forward and I floated up, and I was like, yeah, this is really cool. And
yeah, this is a controlled environment. I can't get hurt.
Exactly.
That's the difference.
The worst that'll happen is I'll duck my head down and I'll hit my head 5 feet below me, and then I'll get up and go. They had just said. They had told me that someone had just died, like
the day before or something like that. Like her chute didn't deploy, and she was
Wow.
like a 20-year veteran or 15-year diver, and just one day. And so I'm like, oh, thanks for that story.
Yeah.
Right before I dive. But yeah, it's hard to describe. It's something I think you have to experience to really appreciate. And there are risks. I didn't have kids. I wasn't married.
Mhm.
And then I thought, well, okay, the time to probably take that risk is after you've passed on your genes to the next generation.
No, the time is before, so that if you're dumb enough to do it, then you don't pass on the genes.
Oh, that's true too. The Darwin test, right?
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you pack your own chute then, or
No way.
no? Yeah.
No. I just had that Bugs Bunny image of like you pull the chute like forks and knives and pots and your chute. Pick the wrong chute. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I probably never do it again, especially now that I have kids. I feel like, why take the unnecessary risk to do it again?
Yeah.
But I mean, if my kids grew up and they were like they really wanted to try it, and if I'm still ambulatory, then maybe I'll try it.
My dad's got a story, not about skydiving, but about motorcycles. On the day that he gave up his motorcycle, my brother had already been born. He's a year and a half older than me, and my mom was pregnant with me. And he made a trip on his motorcycle, which was normally about a 35 to 40-minute trip. He did that trip on his motorcycle in about 12 minutes. And he got to his destination and realized how fast he had been going, and thought about his wife and kids at home, and got done with whatever he was doing, drove back home at a normal speed, and sold the bike the next day. It's like, yeah, okay, I've got responsibilities now. I can't be doing stuff like this, because if I had made even one little mistake, then. And so
how do you not realize that sooner? I guess.
Yeah, it's
like
you
when
don't
the baby
care
comes out of the birth
previously.
canal, you're probably like, things have changed.
Yeah.
Things are different now. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm probably never going to get the chance to skydive, just because I've got a wife and kids now and responsibilities. But there are certainly other risks that we all end up taking in our lives, and fortunately, most of the risks that we take now are more business related, and the worst that'll happen is we'll lose some income for a while.
Numbers-wise, statistics-wise, you're probably still safer jumping out of a plane with a couple of jump masters than getting in your car and driving, driving traffic. The numbers for car deaths are just,
It's like 35,000 people a year die in car wrecks. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was reading the statistics on the skydiving, and I guess it's about the same as scuba. Is it's pretty much a one-to-one mapping.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was looking, because under statistics you always got to look at because statistics at the surface level are never quite correct. So I was like, well, who dies skydiving, right? And it turns out to be I forget where it was. It was something like 80% of the people that die are experienced skydivers. And the reason why is because they push it to the limit, like Larry was saying, right?
Yeah.
So in reality, someone tandem jumping, your odds are incredibly it's incredibly safe.
Mm-hmm.
And you do have a backup chute.
Yeah.
Which those guys, if they're pulling at the lowest possible altitude, they'll never get a chance to use the backup chute.
Right.
Or have time to react.
Yeah, they can roll.
Human grounding rod.
Yes.
There's been a lady there's this story of this lady that fell out of a plane though at something like 20,000 feet and then survived.
There's a
She
few
hit,
of those
enough
stories.
branches on the way down. Yeah.
People that bounce and roll and stuff like that. And
Yeah, that's where I want to make it.
There was an episode of King of the Hill, the cartoon, years ago, where Peggy, the wife and mom in the movie, she did skydiving and her chute didn't open, and she landed in 3 feet of mud, and just flat lands in 3 feet of mud, breaks pretty much every bone in her body, but she survives.
I like a good happy ending.
Yeah. Oh, fun times.
So, John, how does that affect your plans here?
I don't think it changes it. I was planning on doing the tandem when I had heard about the other, but I don't really plan on making a thing of it. So I think the tandem would be fine for me.
Just make sure they cover the unit on landing.
Yeah.
It's kind of important.
Kind of important.
I did get my certificate though.
Nice.
Yeah. I did actually. I've gotten some emails from people that have said they want to go skydiving with me. So since we've done this show, it's pretty funny.
What other frightening things, like, have you guys? You talk about fears. I mean, what else? Fear of public speaking is always like the number one thing, and I think you guys have mostly all conquered that one, or at least found ways to deal with that. Like, I think most people are more afraid of public speaking than just about anything else, including dying.
Yeah. So I handle the public speaking thing by first getting terrified out of my mind. I want to crawl up in a corner and cry and puke my guts out just before getting up in front of an audience and doing a talk. You sit me down in front of a group like us, or put me in front of an audience of 1,000 people, and I can just start talking and talk all day long. I don't have any problem talking in front of people. I have a problem organizing my thoughts into something meaningful and taking what could be 8 hours worth of me rambling and compressing it into 30 or 40 minutes. It is incredibly difficult for me to do that, and so I get really nervous about doing those kinds of talks in front of whatever group. And I found that the best way for me to handle that is to start my presentation by talking about something other than my presentation. And that's usually saying thank you to the conference organizers and sponsors and miscellaneous other things related to the conference itself. So I can start talking and I can get myself in the mode of talking to the audience, but it's not related to what I'm actually going to be saying. So it helps me get my nerves out of the way, and then I can get to the actual conference information.
I thought that gratitude was heartfelt. Now I know better.
It is heartfelt. So yes, but there's also a reason that I do it at the beginning, and I do want to sincerely say thank you to the conference for sure, but it's also a way for me to get myself out of those nerves at the very beginning of it.
Yeah.
I've definitely not conquered this fear yet, but like the few times that I have spoken, I find that if I can get up early, like a couple minutes before I'm supposed to start, and interact with a couple of people like in the front row or something, I just relax pretty quickly. Like that, for me, like the moment of getting up, turning around, and standing there, in silence, waiting for, waiting for the clock to strike the hour or whatever. That's like the worst part for me. So.
Yeah, for me it's different. There was a point where I was nervous where I'd sweat through my shirt, giving a presentation. But now, like, if I get up on stage, like, I get a ton of energy. It lights me up like nothing else. So it's interesting. So I love to do any kind of live event, live speaking.
I used to be in a band for about 5 years around Chicago, and the times I was always most nervous were the times that I just hadn't rehearsed. I mean, you get up there and literally my hand would be shaking, my muscles would be stiff. It would take me about 3 songs before I could even ease up enough to feel any kind of flow. And then the times that things were just effortless, I was practicing an hour or at least a day in anticipation of the gig, and then things would just flow. You just know you've got it. You could do it in your sleep. And I think most people know that. The more practiced you are, the more comfortable you are.
Yeah.
The difference though is night and day. Like between the nerves and the shaking and the feeling like you're going to throw up, to getting up on stage and just doing it. It's like, wow, why wouldn't I go this way all the time?
Yeah. I have started though. Every time that I have a fear now, it's like I must conquer it. Like as soon as, like, that's my default. Like if I can't, I must. It's interesting too. I was at a Tony Robbins conference or seminar, and one of the things that stuck with me more than anything else that he said was the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with. Mm-hmm. And that's, like, that statement rung so true with me, because my whole life has been about creating as much certainty as possible. Kind of like if you think about if you've seen Final Destination, I think it's one of them where he's like holed up in that shed, and he's like duct taping the windows, and like, so nothing can get him, right? I felt like that was me for a while. Like I got into that mode, and maybe it's genetic in my family, because my mom is kind of like that. But once I started to realize that, like, that when you do that, when you tape everything down, your life just becomes, it's predictable and it's safe, but it's boring as hell. and it's not worth living, then I started to realize, okay, well, I've got to. It's when the moments of exhilaration, like the best moments of your life, usually come right before it comes extreme fear, and so like every time that I've made progress, like good progress, where I've drastically improved the quality of my life, it's been because I've overcome some kind of fear, and that's so that's now my new mode.
There's some really cool science on just like we all talk about, as you get older, you start to feel like life is accelerating, things are going by faster. I don't know if you guys have ever tackled this topic before, but there's some really cool research and some insights about living a life where you feel like you've lived a full life versus it blew by and you didn't know what happened.
Yep.
And in the research and in the people who write about the research, they talk about experiences. As you get older and you've experienced things, you just, your brain starts to take shortcuts. It's like, oh, I've seen that before. I don't need to focus. I don't need to be mindful of it. And then the things that are brand new and like you're taking it all in, and your brain is like trying to process and understand. That's when time, or when you're really focused on something like a beautiful piece of music or something, that's when time seems to go really slowly. You're engaging new neurons, and when you the interesting thing is when you look back in memory, it's these kinds of punctuated moments where, like, the more of those interesting punctuated moments you have, the more full of a life it seems like you've led. Whereas if you go through week after week executing the same pattern, time jumps like really quickly through those moments. And they have this saying with parentage. It's like the days are long and the years. The days are long and the years are fast, or something along those lines.
Years are short.
Years are long, the days are The days take forever. It seems like you're just trying to get through that day, but then suddenly a year goes by. You're like, where did that year go? I don't even know. That also has something to do with sleep deprivation and the inability to form long-term memories.
I'm pretty sure bath time is about 6 hours long.
If you're John and you're soaking in your own sweat for a week, it can't be that long.
Filling a bathtub with your own sweat.
I don't even turn on the water. I just think about flying.
That's awesome. But I mean, this summer I definitely got to prove it. I flew around Europe. I probably took 2015. I probably took about somewhere around 20 flights, or maybe more than that, maybe 25 flights. Like, because we went to Europe for 3.5 months and traveled all around, different places 2 weeks at a time. And so I'm pretty confident that I don't have that fear anymore. But it's just to have the framework now. That's why we were talking about originally. Is like I want to put together a course to teach people the framework for overcoming fears, because I think there's multiple pieces of it, but I think that's something that I wish someone would have told me, like given me that, because it limits your life, and it's interesting. Like I see people where their whole life, I was going down the path of becoming a person who was paralyzed by fear, and having a very small box that I lived in, and I see people that live in that box, and it just gets smaller and smaller. Like if you let fear take your life, you cannot feed that beast. It will just keep on wanting more, and so that's. I definitely would like to build something around that. So
cool.
Yeah, this whole fear of flying thing's actually cast a pall over my relationship with John. I don't think John knows this. Like, I have this guilty, because I found out when I was at Trackabout that John was afraid of flying. Indirectly, somebody said something to me that they shouldn't have said, and I mentioned it to Larry, and Larry was like, "Oh, you shouldn't know that." And so he's like, "Yeah." So like, every time John mentions flying, for the last 3 years, I've been like, I don't know what I'm not supposed to know. I don't know anything about that. And so I didn't realize until recently that he'd totally overcome the whole fear of flying. So
I remember trying by hook or by crook to find a way to get you to DevCon. Oh, you could take the Amtrak, or you could get on a bus, or you could
like Madden, right? Have the Sanmez bus.
Oh, I remember what we did, John. I brought all this recording equipment.
Exactly, yeah.
I brought a mixing board. I brought preamps and microphones, because I was in my home recording. This was back in the day. I had all this home recording equipment from. I used to record artists and stuff, and we set up in the conference room. We set up all this recording equipment to try to capture the audio. I'm like, if John can't be there, then I want to make it sound like as good as it can sound, so he feels like he's there. I'm like, we're gonna do as much as I can within my power to do that. We had mics on the opposite sides of the room. It was awesome. I had fun.
Nice.
That was a good time.
Yeah, I think the next year was the one that I went to when we were. That was when we were in Orlando.
Yeah.
And John brought his tiny little MacBook Air. Hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. But you know, one of the elements too of it, which is interesting, is at least what I found is that you can't be like forced or pressured. Like you have to. It has to be a self-initiated step in order to overcome any fear, which is interesting because like you have to make the decision. So like no one can really like. I don't know. I guess you could be sort of coached into realizing that, but not pushed into it.
For example, I actively choose to be deathly afraid of spiders because screw spiders. There's a spider, burn the house down. That's the only possible solution.
Nice.
Yeah,
well, where
it's
you
funny,
are,
though.
there's actually some grounding to that, right?
No, I grew up in Kansas, and I've been. I guess when I was a little kid, I was not so afraid of spiders, but I remember. As I got older, I lived in Minnesota when I was 10 to 12 years old, and that's really where it started. And then I got bit by a brown recluse spider when I moved back to Kansas when I was 13. And so
right?
Yeah, the doctors told me that I was lucky to have my foot survive, basically.
Wow.
They told me that it must have been a really tiny spider or just a tiny little graze, because my foot swelled up to about the size of a grapefruit. And they told me if it had got any worse, they would have had to scrape half my foot off. Oof. Yeah. So that's kind of what cemented my fear of spiders at that point. From that point on, I don't care what kind of spider it is. It's gonna die violently if I see it.
You totally missed the opportunity to have a wooden leg. You could have been a pirate.
That would have been amazing.
It's so funny though because you guys are talking about like very specific fears and very specific things, and I'm thinking, well, you know, I'm not really afraid of any of those things. I mean, if I get up really high, I get a little uncomfortable, but I'm not like terrified.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I was like, well, am I afraid of anything? And the things that really terrify me are like when I don't know where the next dollar's coming from out of my business. Or you know, it's the same kind of thing, right? It's oh crap, you know, they're gonna come take my house and come take my car and come take my stuff, and you know, my kids are gonna live in a refrigerator box around the corner, and you know, eventually I really think about it, and it's like, you know, even if they did come and take all that stuff, which they probably won't, and there's probably a long process to doing that. The worst case scenario is what? I have to move into my parents' basement for a little while with my family, or I mean, it's not like we're going to be homeless or anything.
Have you ever seen how excited kids get about refrigerator boxes?
Yeah. Yes.
So true.
Myself included.
But I mean, ultimately, yeah, you gain that perspective, right? That John's talking about. You do the research. It's like, yeah, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to be as bad. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, if you could eliminate all of that uncertainty, your life would be fairly boring. Some of what makes life exciting is the fact that you don't know. Like, you don't absolutely know that you're going to be 100% secure.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an interesting exercise that I was having some people do that I did a video on. We'll see how this goes. But I do this exercise myself. I was doing this when I was overcoming sort of the fear. I guess when I started overcoming, because there's a fear of public speaking, and then there's a fear of being, I would say, real, like with people, like not living behind a mask. And because we all have like, or most of us have these like nervous habits that we do when we're uncomfortable, so we're not real. But when I go for a run, this is going to sound weird. Okay, if you run by me, you're going to think I'm a weirdo. But when you pass someone, right? Like you're walking past someone or running past someone, right? If it's like as a guy, if you pass a girl, most likely there'll be a point where you'll smile, right? You'll make eye contact and you'll smile. And if you pass a guy, you'll probably most people, and you can watch people with this interaction, they'll break eye contact at some point. So the exercise is this: when you go for a walk, you make eye contact, right? And you do not smile. You do not give any indication of you don't show your
why
teeth.
John shaved his head. This is why John shaved his head.
You just keep the intensity. You don't just not like serial killer stare, but you make eye contact.
I am a creep. I am a creep. I am a creep.
Exactly. Yeah. Get the mustache going.
The nod.
Yeah. It's a real good exercise. Like, you can test yourself to see where you are on the scale, like how uncomfortable this is for you, if you can do this. Because there's some people that just absolutely cannot do it at all. And I find that I'd say like 95% of people I've talked to that have tried this, they'll when they try this, they'll realize, oh, I tend to smile. Like, as soon as that confrontation that you would almost have. I mean, nothing's going to happen, like, unless you, like, some gangbanger.
Depends on what neighborhood you're in.
Yeah, I guess it depends what neighborhood. Well, actually, you probably would be safer in a bad neighborhood if you did that than if you smiled, right? If you think about it. But
what is this proving? So this is you're exercising dominance. I mean, you're trying to be alpha. Like, what else do you think this is proving?
Well, it's because you have a fear of like, most people have this built-in fear, so they defer, so they they
it's
go
a social norm violation, really, because the social norm is when you pass by somebody and you make eye contact, you acknowledge their existence by smiling and generally being friendly. So it's partially a question of, can I break this social norm, and can I do it in a way that helps me get over my discomfort. This is one of the things that my wife teaches in her psychology classes, and she does these social norm violations with her students in one particular class.
Elevators are an awesome place for social norm violations.
Exactly. I was just about to bring that up. So if you want to do a great social norm violation, walk into a crammed elevator and look at everyone else. Turn around so you're facing everyone.
Or just stand in the corner like this.
You'll make everyone standing in the corner looking down. That's acceptable because you're not engaging anyone else in the elevator.
I mean, like a back corner. Like, they're gonna wonder what the hell's up with this guy.
But if you stand in the front of the elevator right by the door and turn around and look at everyone else, you're gonna make a lot of people very uncomfortable. So it's that kind of social norm violation that helps you get past a lot of the fears that you're talking about, because a lot of the fears that we have are just social norm violations that we don't want to deal with. But for the running thing, back when I was exercising, I was totally in the camp of, I'm not going to smile at you, I don't know you, I don't care, I'm working my ass off here, this is not comfortable, I am not happy, don't expect me to smile.
Derek, you know who else is big on this type of exercise is your buddy Tim Ferriss.
Oh, you know it.
He gives an exercise for people to go to some crowded location like Starbucks at lunchtime or something, and just lay down in the middle of the floor.
Oh, yeah.
For like a minute. Just stay there, don't move, like you're taking a nap.
And at some point, it comes over the intercom. We got another Tim Ferriss guy. Manager come out here.
It's an interesting, but try it sometime. See if you can do it, because it's difficult. But it becomes, once you start doing it, though. I mean, I think honestly there is a benefit for it, which is that you can learn how to channel your intensity, to bring your intensity more so, and not back off in situations where you should push forward. Because if you can do that, then you can. Because most of us, honestly, like with the way that society kind of trains us today, we're a little bit too timid. Like we're afraid to to be ourselves and to push forward. And so I don't know. It's an exercise I had been doing for a while, and I noticed a difference when I started doing it, and then people also don't, if they know where I'm running, they're not there anymore. So
I need a headline writes itself. Area jogger leaves wake of simpering fetal position men as he jogs through town.
So another good social norm violation that one of my wife's students did once was her birthday. So she went to a restaurant on a very crowded night by herself and told the waitress, "It's my birthday. I would really like to have everybody come out and sing for me." And so she got, she was very excited about the whole thing, very enthusiastic, really wanted them to come out. And so she got, the crowd of servers and wanted to come out and do the whole cheering and singing and everything. And every last one of the servers that was doing this looked incredibly uncomfortable because there was just this one person sitting in the booth, and are they here with anyone else? Should we be a little more quiet? Is
and
this
then she should just break down sobbing at the end of it.
Yeah.
You guys are giving me so many good ideas.
There's all kinds of fun things that you can do. Next time you're around anyone, pay attention to the things that you do around other people that you would not consider to be things that you would normally do by yourself. And those are probably social norms that have just been ingrained into us just by existing amongst other people. And see if you can pick one to break and see what happens.
Next week on Entreprogrammers.
Yes.
It's actually good though
We
because
talk about the results of the 4-hour weekend
Yes.
at Starbucks.
If people are extremely suppressed, they're likely whenever you hear those like mass killing people that go nuts and shoot up places, it's usually someone who's very extremely suppressed and is uncomfortable being themselves around people. And so I don't know. I mean, breaking the social norms is definitely a good thing. Not that you're gonna be a serial killer if you don't. But it's funny. I actually, because of my YouTube channel, I end up getting a lot of my audience is 19-year-old guys, right? And so a lot of the coaching I end up giving their questions, right? Programmer type, typical. So one of the exercises that I always give with coaching is your assignment is to go to the mall and you're going to say hi to 50 people, and that's your assignment, right? Because if you can, that's going to help them to be able to do the things that they, to approach women.
That would take me about 17 hours.
But once you do it, right? Imagine it puts you at a different level, right? I mean, I don't know. I did one time. I had gumball machines.
Is that a disease?
Did you see your doctor about
that? I went to businesses and asked if I could put a gumball machine in there, and that was a big after that point, it changed. I could then talk to people and ask them, make requests.
If they like gum.
Yeah. So yeah, do you like gum? Do you want? So.
Do you like gum? Do you like balls? Well, I've got a deal for you.
Team meetings at Trackabout were always so much fun.
So I got to ask you, Larry, did you? Because I'm trying to think, for Entreprogrammers, for some period of time, we were the no subject was to talk about Josh's job.
Yeah. That was the forbidden taboo. We would talk to Josh about things before we started recording.
Yeah, we could talk about anything except for Josh's job. So how far back did you see it coming? Did you see Josh leaving? Because I think we did talk about little pieces of it on the show, but so everyone is probably who's listening or watching is wondering, when did Larry start to suspect that Josh was going to pull the cord?
When he started writing his ebook about Sublime.
Oh yeah, yep.
I mean,
Really?
it's a dead giveaway that when somebody's really passionate about a side project, especially when they're working on monetizing it, I mean, they've got other aims, they've got bigger ambitions. So yeah, I mean, you never really see it coming. You hope it's not going to happen, but ultimately, I mean, everybody leaves eventually.
Right.
It's just a matter of time. I don't know what the average is. I mean, we've got some guys at Trackabout who've been there 10 years, But yeah, I'd say the Sublime thing was the first tip of the hat. Or tip of the hat? No.
Tip of the hand.
Tip of the hand, thank
There
you.
you go.
I never was good at poker.
Speaking of fears, Larry, oh my goodness, the day I sent in that email to resign.
To resign.
I was I wrote the email, and then I got up from my computer and I walked around the house for half an hour. And
What
then
were you afraid of?
I just for me, well, I mean, honestly, for me, every time I've had to leave a job, I've always felt like I was letting people down, and it's just because I felt like I was doing good work, and I felt like I was a valued member of the team and everything, and
yeah, I mean,
it's really hard. So I walked around the house for 20 minutes, and then I came back downstairs and hit the enter key before I think. And I was okay, I guess I just quit my job. So
for me, when I left Trackabout, it was not just the fear of letting you down and letting the rest of the team down and leaving all of the projects that I was working on, but also the fear of what I was doing next. Because like Josh and John, I went off to do my own independent thing. Happened to be going to work with Joey Benninghoff at the time, but it was still our own thing. I just spent an hour on Skype with him last night, actually.
How's he doing?
He's doing really well. He's got a lot of really good things going on. And he was having some troubles with Node.js and NPM, so I was helping him understand how all that works. But when I left, for me, it wasn't just letting other people down that I was already working with. It was the fear of the unknown, and I seriously broke down crying multiple times in making that decision. I mean, it was incredibly stressful and incredibly difficult for me to leave, but also to go and do something completely brand new, like independent contracting. And even though I literally had this contract handed to me by Joey, he's like, come on, come work for me. I really want you to do this with me. And it was there's always that fear of moving into the unknown. But what I found after a few years of doing contracting is I was no longer afraid of leaving a job. I was no longer concerned with what would be next because I was constantly leaving a job. Every month or two, I'd have a new contract, a new employer, a new situation that I would be going into with a brand new set of eyes and new experiences. So when I went back to the corporate life for a year and worked for Telerik, it was like, okay, yeah, let's go work for Telerik for a year. And then, I got through with that year and realized that I couldn't be somebody else's employee anymore. I had to be independent on my own. I had to be doing it for myself. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna quit. Josh and John.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It was literally one day, one Friday. They told me, don't quit yet. Put a plan in place. Get things together and have it planned out so that in months to a year you can quit.
But Derek had a better plan.
I had a better
Derek's plan.
Literally the next Monday morning.
We just started Entreprogrammers. We weren't even recording yet, right? Or did we? Or maybe we just started recording. I don't
remember. But I mean,
what's the history of the I didn't know you guys were doing this thing, right? Like I'm pretty sure I didn't know anything about that you guys were in cahoots doing this thing. Was it like a mastermind kind of idea at the time, or?
Yeah. We started out, actually it was me and John originally, and then John and I were both like, we need somebody else, and then we were both like, how about Derek?
Yeah, I mean, I knew John from hiring him at Trackabout and talking with him a bunch, and I had a few conversations about things related to Sublime and whatnot with Josh. So I knew both of them a little bit, and it was like, okay, well, here's a connection between all of us, something that'll bring us close together pretty quickly. We can reminisce about Trackabout and talk about things from that perspective, and it brought us together really quickly and helped us to become closer friends faster than if we were just random strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it was originally a mastermind group, like you were thinking. Yeah. And then one day we decided, hey, we should really be recording this stuff because I bet there's a lot of people that would really benefit from listening in on this.
Do you guys disclose listener numbers?
Yeah, I haven't looked at them in forever.
We tend to be pretty open about stats.
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I quite literally just opened all of my stats for Watch Me Code to the world just this week. I've got Baremetrics signed up. Watch Me Code is on Baremetrics now for all of my Stripe subscription stuff.
We could hook you up, Larry, with Trackabout so you guys could
yeah.
Put your financials out there.
Oh, yeah, right.
So let's see. In the month of January, we had 5,500 downloads, or so far in January, I should say.
Okay.
December was 7,700. November was 7,000. All time for being on Libsyn, which has only been since October, is 65,000. So we get pretty good number of listeners.
7,500.
Yeah, since October.
You know what podcasts really need? Like the whole podcasting industry needs to get together and figure out how to get like listener stats into the podcatchers, so how long people listened for, where they stopped, what they skipped, are they skipping ads? Like I know it's just an MP3 file at the end of the day, and you'd have to put it in an envelope and do all kinds of crazy stuff to get those stats. But holy cow, is the whole podcast industry blind?
Yeah.
All they have are
there are a number
downloads.
of there are a number of companies like Libsyn that will build custom apps for you, and you can when you get their custom app for your podcast, it has that kind of tracking built into
Do
it.
people use that custom app? I mean,
If it's a large enough presence for the podcast, yes.
I could go on about
yeah, but
podcasts for
even
hours.
then,
Yeah.
I mean,
But yeah.
you know, I run some larger podcasts, and I still think most people would listen through their podcatcher just because that's where all the rest of them are.
Yeah.
It's true.
The killer feature that I must have, which I get in Pocket Casts and used to have in Dogcatcher on Android, is the ability to accelerate playback.
Yeah.
I can't not do that. If I have to download an app and it can't accelerate playback, forget you, app. I don't have that kind of time. Like, I need to compress this. And then I find I listen to people at such a high clip, I start getting frustrated with the way real people talk. It's like, can we come on, let's go faster.
That's hilarious. Larry, you already have that tendency being from New Jersey, right? Where you want people to talk faster, so.
Yeah, I listen to Audible books like almost all the time on 3x speed.
Yeah.
3x.
So yeah, I have the same problem. It's like when someone's talking regular conversation, I'm like, okay, come on, let's go.
And you get to the point, talk about social norms.
Yeah.
Come on, I don't have all day.
But yeah, when we start
Talking
actually,
like that Micro Machines guy.
the only topic literally that has been not talk that has been taboo to talk about on this podcast has been Josh's job until he
Yep.
everything else,
Everything.
well, personal finances, everything, we reveal it all. That was kind of like one of the premises of the show. Like we happen, like all of us have no problem, just revealing it all. And it was kind of cool and that's part of the reason I think why we started recording it was because we said, well, you hear about entrepreneurs all the time and about people building businesses and stuff, and sometimes you hear failure stories and sometimes you hear mostly you hear success stories, but you never see the actual real struggle and real journey and the real like screw-ups and dumb mistakes and the luck that you happen. And so we were like, well, we're just gonna like reveal it all, like whatever anyone wants to know, we're just gonna talk about it, and we got nothing to hide. So
I think that's great as long as you're independent solo efforts, or you guys are all in agreement.
Yeah.
Obviously, things change big time when you have employees or investors or anybody else to answer to, and things start becoming a competitive disadvantage because you publish your numbers and you're afraid, what if my competitor sees my numbers and they'll know I'm weak, or they'll know I'm too strong, or they'll start doing what I'm doing, or. But I think it's fantastic. I think it's the only thing of its kind. I've not seen another endeavor like you guys where you're sharing all this information openly. It reminds me of, was it Buffer? No, who's the company that was
Buffer.
We're gonna tell everybody what the salaries are.
Yeah, that was Buffer.
Yeah, it's funny. Actually, I've been reading through like a bunch of Hacker News threads this week because I'm working on. We're gonna next project. Larry, John and I are basically partnering up to work on stuff for Simple Programmer for the next year. And so I'm working on rewriting the sales page for his How to Market Yourself course, and I've been reading all week Hacker News and Reddit threads about the job hunt process.
I'm so sorry.
And oh my goodness, I've been sending John some choice excerpts, and it's pretty funny. Oh my goodness. But yeah, like the people thinking, I think the company should just make everything public. Like that's just a can of worms you cannot open.
Yeah, I agree. But
Yep.
And I think there should be more openness and more honesty from companies, but to a large extent, when you start going down that path, it does create a significant number of problems for the companies. But I still think there should be more openness from more companies.
Yeah, it depends on what you're. Like with I think with what we're doing, I think it makes sense because, like I said, we're small, we're mostly solo, it's part of our job is to help people anyway, right? That's like we're teaching, all of us are teaching to some capacity. So to do that, you have to, in order to be an effective teacher, you have to be vulnerable, you have to be transparent as much as possible because people have to relate to you, otherwise they're not going to hear your message. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, you seem to have a knack, though, Larry, for picking entrepreneurs.
The elephant in the room.
Well,
I mean, I think it's like, yeah. I mean, the culture at Trackabout is kind of entrepreneurial. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good. I mean, it's a good place to be a developer. It's also a good place to kind of, I don't. It somehow it nurtures that inner. Being around people like that for me really kind of nurtured
But
that entrepreneurial spirit that I'd actually suppressed and kind of forgotten about.
for me, it was the culture at Trackabout nurtured my desire to really focus on the customer and what the customer needed. And that was one of the biggest reasons that I joined Trackabout, is because I saw the previous companies that I'd worked in and the place that I was at just prior as only being concerned with themselves. The company I worked at prior to Trackabout, the slogan of the owner was "keep charging," and his thought behind that was keep moving forward, always continue the movement. But the way it came across was keep charging the customer. It was like butts in seats.
Our churn rate is 0.
Yeah, it was butts in seats so that we could charge more and maximize the revenue coming from these contracts, and that drove me nuts.
That's a consultancy for you, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
It's
that's
all about billable hours.
right, and that's what I really appreciated about Trackabout, and what I personally took away from my time there was really focusing on the customer's needs and being able to do what they need and have that really one-on-one personal experience with the customers and understanding their problems more in depth and being able to help them solve their problems. So that for me was a big part, a big thing that I took away and put into my consulting efforts. And now with Watch Me Code and everything else that I'm doing, it's always focused on helping other people and making sure that the end user, the customer, whatever you want to call it, is the one that has the benefit, because eventually, me doing all of that work is going to produce more business for me. It creates fans, it creates people that like me and want to throw money at me when I do have something to offer.
Yeah. One of the things that really, like the thing that jumped out when I saw the job listing from Trackabout, the thing that really jumped out to me was I just really liked how Trackabout was solving like a real world problem.
Yeah.
Like this was like, I don't know, like this wasn't like some, startup that was trying to solve some problem that really didn't exist. I mean, this was like a nitty-gritty, real world, like actual people's jobs and lives were going to be made better. And I was just like, sign me up. And I really, like even now, like with my marketing stuff, I really like working with, like, I call them real businesses, like brick and mortar, there's nothing wrong with an info business or an internet marketing business or anything like that, but I prefer to work with people that have, that really have one-to-one contact with their customers and they're providing like real tangible services.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think all these SaaS businesses, they move towards the swipe a card and get started, and you never touch a person.
Mm-hmm.
You never. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, would I like to never have to do professional services at Trackabout again? I would. You lose a lot of contact with your customers. I don't know how you. Yeah, there was a really interesting. I don't know if you guys listened to the A16Z podcast, the Andreessen Horowitz podcast. I think they're excellent. And the most recent episode, they had the founder of a security company called Tanium on, and they basically help companies with their security, plug in their holes and whatnot. And the CEO said something really interesting. He said we don't sell services. We never sell services. It's against our ethos to sell services. We sell a product. And what you find with companies that sell services are they begin to find reasons to, they start making money from services, and then they're like, oh, we need to make our product need more services because we need to sell more services. He's like, I want my product to sell itself, be configurable, be able to get in there, and not have to sell services, because it's much more easy to stamp out that kind of product than one that always requires services.
Mm-hmm. Well, So I've been reading a lot lately about investing, and one thing that is really kind of shook me up a little bit, honestly, was realizing how much the investment industry is set up to just suck people in and then just continually skim. And most investment advisors are taking value away, and they're not adding value. And it was kind of freaking me out, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm providing a service. Like, am I just taking value? But then I'm like, I realized like the difference is that in the financial industry, it's a zero-sum game. Like, you're only going to get the returns you get. There's only so much returns to go around for the whole market, and so there's like you can get a bigger or a smaller piece of the pie. And with entrepreneurship, you're actually creating value.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm helping businesses. It took me a while to kind of work through it, but I realized, okay, no, I actually am creating value here. So it's okay. It's okay to take large chunks of value when you're creating more value for somebody. But
Absolutely.
when you're just skimming off, and they're worse. Like most people would be better off just sticking their money in an index fund than paying a financial advisor, which is what I'm doing.
It's interesting
now,
listening
so.
to you guys. It's like when I don't know, 10, 15 years ago or so, I bought a Tony Robbins book. I bought like a Guy Kawasaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits, and all. I read them all. 10, 15 years ago, and things like socking all my money in an S&P Index 500. Like I was buying and selling stocks when I first started working, and I'm like, I'm in technology. I understand this stuff. I can totally pick a winner. Lost my shirt, and then I'm like, you know what? Screw this. Max out the 401k, plow it on the S&P 500, and I'm done. I'm never going to touch it. I'm never going to look at it, and I'm just going to ride that. It's like I hear history repeating itself.
Yep.
Totally.
Talking about things that I think I'm probably older than all are you, but it's funny. It's interesting. Yeah, it sounds like you're on the same track I am. It's.
By the way, if you haven't gone to a Tony Robbins seminar, you should check it out.
That guy scares me. I think someone's gonna make him angry, and he's gonna turn into the Hulk. Start smashing.
He's a tall guy. I'm going to. I don't know if I told you guys, but I signed up for UPW, Unleash the Power Within, in March. It'll be in Florida. If anyone wants to go, I can still get tickets. I think like $800 for.
Yeah, I'm tempted, but then I would be going to a conference in February, March, and April, and I think that would probably end my marriage. So I'm not gonna do that. My poor wife. I'm gonna be leaving her already. So.
Yeah. I'm going to Amsterdam in February for an Angular conference, and then we're all going to MicroConf at the beginning of April. And there's a conference in Salt Lake that's a Ruby conference. It's the last year they're doing it, so I'm going to that. And I was like, yeah, I kind of want to go to this other retreat thing at the beginning of March. And she just looked at me and said, that's a lot. That's really a lot. And what she was telling me was, if you do it, don't come home.
Send money, but don't come home.
You come home and there's just a twin bed in your bedroom.
That's right.
But yeah. Oh yeah, I never talked about my. So when I left Trackabout, it was funny because it was the first job that I ever left that I didn't want. That there was no reason to leave, like I except for the financial aspect. Like I had no, like I was perfectly content and happy working in the environment. Most jobs, by the time you leave, you're like, oh, okay, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. I'm fed up with this. So that was funny. And I was scared. I was definitely scared of Larry.
I thought I cast this wave of fear over you guys. I had no idea.
No, I was scared of letting everyone down too, and just like and also just the fear. I mean, it was ridiculous fear because people were like, John, why are you still working regular job when you're fine? You could leave, and you should have left like 6 months, a year ago, and you would have been fine. But you have that irrational fear of I think
change.
I was saying of and I gotta have everything. What if something goes wrong? What if my life? I live in a cardboard box, and it's like that's so unrealistic. Like I try to remind myself that everything that I really have is here. Like you know what I mean? Like you can recreate the world again if you're strengthening yourself, if you're building up your knowledge and your ability. Then it doesn't matter. Like you can get wiped out and you'll be fine. It's when you put your faith in all these other things, that's the things that are actually not the things you should have.
If you have confidence in yourself and your skills, then you can land on your feet no matter what happens.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember my reaction when you finally came and said you were leaving. It was probably like, well, it's about time. It was probably something along those lines.
Larry, I think I remember hearing from somebody that you were at a conference. I think you told me this in a one-on-one, but you were at a conference some kind of mobile conference, and like you got up and left because you were just upset.
I think it was RFID World or something like that.
Yeah, you were pretty.
I was very disappointed in all of you.
I think you. I think you tried to offer John a raise, and then
try to keep you.
I remember the story that like I remember somebody telling me that you offered him a raise, and he was like, well, and you asked him like what he was making from forum sites, and he was like, well, and he names like the he names a six-figure number. He's like, this was my last royalty check was like, whatever, and then and you're like, oh, for the year, and he's like, oh no, that was for the quarter. Like, oh, okay, why are you still here?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So there's a running joke that everyone who has at Trackabout who's used Derek's laptop has left. So Larry,
Watch out,
you are one of the few.
Oh, the MacBook?
Yeah, the MacBook, yeah.
That's still cooking.
Careful with who gets it, because it's cursed.
Jason Famularo has it now. So.
Oh.
Yeah, he calls it the job killer laptop.
Yes.
Just don't let Shuba touch that thing.
Right.
It's mostly Apple products, really.
Yeah.
It's time to retire Derek's number, I guess.
I guess so.
It goes back even further, right? Because I don't know Joey really, but Derek does, and Joey was like so everyone who's listening, watching the show doesn't really, because we haven't had Joey on the show, but he was Trackabout and he left, became an entrepreneur. So.
Yeah, Joey was the reason that I went to Trackabout to begin with. I knew Joey from my Los Techies days, and he left 6 months after I got there, and then I left 6 months after that to join him.
I only know Joey from comments in the source control. There was a comment. One of the other developers, Joel, left a comment in there. It was like in this WinForms app. It was the TA mobile app, and it was this WinForms app, and it was like, fix this bug so now Joey can go back to drag and drop coding.
Holy moly!
Yeah, so funny. Oh my God. There were some good gems in the.
Oh yeah.
That was one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, there was a whole. I stumbled across the epic. I'm pretty sure Larry wrote it. There was this epic story, and it was probably about it was like a blog post. It was about 1,000 words, and it was just about how it was this whole narrative about how an intern had gotten the roll of barcodes, and they'd put one barcode, instead of putting a pair of barcodes on a cylinder, they put one on each cylinder, so that every single cylinder that they had was like causing collisions in the system. And yeah, it was just it was.
I remember it was most horrifying. Like from a business owner's perspective, like when your customer absolutely pollutes their own data because they like hired low-skilled interns and didn't train them right, and this is an asset tracking system.
Oh man!
So you need unique barcodes, and we would print them on a roll, like 2 up. They say with 2 labels with the same ID on it, because you want to put one on one side and one on the other side, so you can scan this thing from any angle.
Oh yeah.
And they just we had 2 incidents. One was some interns did something stupid, but the other one was our label printer printed this was our previous label printer because we fired them. So they printed a whole bunch of barcodes, and then the label broke. And then they were like, oh, we got to fix it. So they tape it back together, reset the printer back to the first number, and then print it from the first ID.
Oh no.
So these go out into the field, and the customer just blindly, puts them on all their assets. And then the next thing we know is they're calling us because they're like, weird things are happening. Like they deliver an asset to customer A, and then they deliver another asset to customer B, and the system is like, well, those are the same assets. So it takes it off of customer A and puts it on customer B. So now the system doesn't know it's over there. It's over there. It's like, so Shuba, I think it was Shuba and I. We basically like did a feverish like all-night weekend coding session where we had to put in like duplicate number detection logic and the known ranges that were overlapped. We had to like download them to all the devices, and then you had to rebarcode it on the spot because this can't go on. And the customer was furious, and we fired the printer. And yep, when computer stuff touches the real world, that's when it all when it all flies apart. I envy a lot of these like totally virtual businesses where there's just no real physical anything that happens. It's just all it's floating around in the cloud, and like can't really hurt anything.
I make screencasts for other developers.
Yeah, we have. It's kind of funny. Like we've had this conversation before. Like we have like John and I are working. Well, John has hired a bookkeeper, And you actually have to find a bookkeeper who's worked with this type of business before, because otherwise they're like pretty freaked out. They're like, what do you mean you don't have any expenses?
What do you mean you don't have assets? Where's your inventory?
Profit margin is 95%.
That sounds like Apple.
Yeah. That's what they come in and they go, I know what to do, and then they mess your books up.
Yes.
Because they run it like a regular.
Yeah.
I must all have a love-hate with QuickBooks, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I have gotten a new appreciation for the hiring process, though, for after hiring people for jobs and just like, hiring the wrong person is like the worst thing you can possibly do.
It's so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
And hiring, one of the very first bad hires I've ever made, I was hiring a mini-me. It was a guy who went to my university, like just had my same major, like was in the same fraternity, like everything down the line, similar interests, I'm just like, this guy's a mini-me. I should totally hire this guy. And then, he'd be, we were using Yahoo Instant Messenger back in the day, and you could set it up to not show that you're away. It just looked like you were always online. And so I'd hit him up and say, hey, where are you? Are you there? I need you, and just no responses. And then like 4 hours later, oh, hi, sorry. And this happened a number of times. And finally I'm like, what is the deal? You're never around. Because we're all working remote. We don't work in an office, for those who don't know. And it finally he comes out. He's like, well, I'm kind of an aspiring actor, and I'm going to auditions. And I figured work from home. I could do my work whenever I, So I fired him.
That explains the note in the track about Wiki about never setting your away status to be always there.
Yeah.
All of those little warning signs that are on ladders all exist because somebody tried to sue a ladder manufacturer. Somebody was dumb enough to stand on the little ledge. Somebody was dumb enough to do something right here. Somebody was dumb enough, and so they put those little warning signs on there for those reasons.
The worst
I had that.
Oh, go ahead.
I had that bite me with a client. I just left Slack always signed in, and I had it always set to online. So like 11 o'clock at night on a Thursday night, they send me a message, and then they're torqued off because I didn't reply till 8 o'clock the next morning.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say the worst is the person who does just enough to not get fired, to just get by. You can't you know what I mean? You're like, oh well, that's the worst one.
It's worse. Like, I don't know. My wife is in HR, so I hear all these stories about they have international offices, and actually this is her old company more so than her new one, but what it actually takes to fire somebody in, say, England versus what you can do here. You have to give them a warning, and then a second warning, and a third warning, and 6 months later, maybe you can let them go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the
and
big
you have to
reasons why
document it all in triplicate.
It's one of the big reasons we're more competitive, because they can't cut dead weight.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what they do, they're stuck with people. So you keep moving them around to the place where they can do the least amount of damage, and then they're just coasting on the company's largesse, if there is largesse.
Yeah, I have a lot of after this week especially. I just have a lot of respect for the track about hiring process. It was a good balance of of not trying to humiliate people necessarily, but I still felt like it definitely pushed me in.
That's good.
Yeah, it's funny that the things that you're coming up with, Josh, from Hacker News. It's such an entitlement, like thinking, just that the company needs to some way serve you, some way make it easier for you to get the job or apply for the job or not be,
all these 20-year-old kids in San Francisco who know nothing of the real world because their entire life has been spent on a computer and now in front of Hacker News, where the entitlement just seeps in even further.
Yeah,
they have affluenza.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, affluenza.
And they still can't afford a condo.
What are you guys doing these days with in terms of coding challenges and stuff? Because that is a huge hot button. Oh my goodness, people
in terms of recruiting?
Furious. Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
are you doing code challenges to screen people out before the interviews or?
Yeah, we've not been doing a ton of hiring lately.
Okay.
So, but what the last thing we did was we were using Codility, which is just a coding platform, and to me it's more of a smoke test and also a test to find people who are really good. Like I would make a few, like maybe 4 tests or 3 tests from really easy, like, okay, can you actually code something if your life depended on it, to the 4th one's like, if you get this one, like maybe you should be working here. So and I would do that, and just it was never, I never even had a line in the sand. Like I would have to look at their results and their reasoning and why they did it, but even just you'd learn things about them, not even just by how well they program, but you'd learn things about, like, can they show up and do the thing on time? Can they do the thing when they said they were going to do the thing? Do they even try? Do they even try to justify what they did, or do they just throw their hands up and walk away? Like, people sometimes get cheesed off about being put to the test. Too bad. I mean, sorry. You're going to get... And then people will write long exposition blog posts about how this isn't like the real world. I wouldn't really have to take a test under time circumstances, or I wouldn't really have to program in front of another person and justify my actions. But there's a lot of intangibles that you pick up from somebody, and they may think you're judging them harshly, but you're looking at things that they don't even know you're looking at when you do things like this. So I read a lot. I mean, I posted a blog post 3-4 years ago about kind of our hiring process, and it hasn't changed that much since then. And there was this long discussion thread where I almost felt like people were trolling me, and I started to feed the trolls in the responses. And some guys like getting all up in my face and giving me attitude about the way we hire.
Nobody feeds trolls better than Larry either.
Jab them, give them a little. How about this? I know this will really light them up. Let me do this.
Yeah.
I love to get them going. But at the end of the day, start your own damn company, and you can hire whoever you want. You don't have to. You don't have to join my company. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the "it's not the real world" argument, because I'm like, first of all, life isn't fair, and then second of all, like, it is the real world because someone really did ask you to do this. Like, this is such a dumb argument to make. Like, this is reality. Like, no, we didn't have a dream, and you didn't dream this happened. This actually happened. So I bet there's another company that would also exist in the real world that would ask the same thing. Amazing.
And that's not the only thing we do. I mean, I've interviewed hundreds of developers at this point. So the first gate is me. You got to do my little 20 questions, hour-long.
What a gate it is.
You got to get past my defenses, and then if I think there's a question about whether you can code, I might send you to the coding challenge. Usually, if somebody's got a lot of stuff on GitHub, or they've obviously written a lot of code, I'll just ask one of the developers to take a look at it and give me an impression of what they think. You can never really tell if they wrote it all themselves or they cribbed it from someplace else, but you try to get an idea, and maybe send them to this coding challenge as a smoke test. And then we have pretty much the hiring process is the same as when you guys probably went through it. At least John and Josh, I think. There's 2 sessions of you pair programming with 2 other developers.
I was one of the people that helped develop that.
Yeah, talking about solid principles, some basic OO concepts. We do a little bit of SQL, a little bit of coding kata. Ask some questions. We've got it all documented at this point, but it's been the same process. So there's at least 4 kind of interactions. Years ago, we flew some people in. We used to fly people in, and I'd meet them here in Chicago just because I felt like I had to meet people face to face to really get a feel for them.
Yeah.
And I think it's an expensive luxury to do that. And so much work, we all know so much work is being done virtually. I mean, the whole Linux kernel, and I don't think it's necessarily necessary anymore.
And now there must be, you probably, do you have like a lie detector test, and then you say, John, Josh, Derek, and see how they respond.
Yeah.
We send everybody like a Scientology engram tester, and you got to hold on to the 2 handles while we ask questions. It's engram anotics across the internet, and then you gauge how elevated you are.
Yes. Mention the word entrepreneur.
That's funny.
Oh, good times.
Well, it was a pleasure working with all you guys. You guys all elevated Trackabout in one way or another. And I think Josh, you passed me a question in email. You said you wanted to talk about, like, what is it? Why hire people who are so obviously entrepreneurial, or
Yeah, it seems like there's a tension there.
That's a great question.
Yeah, like you hire people. It's like you're hiring high caliber people, but then you get everybody gets situated and contributes a little bit, and then we're off doing bigger and better things. Or maybe
I think about it like you guys are accelerators. Like think about the Hot Wheels track where you got the two little spinning wheels. And when the car goes through them, it kind of it just kind of takes off. So yeah, that's what I feel like. You hire great people, regardless if they're interested in working with Trackabout and they think that they're going to be a contributor, even if for a couple of years. Like, why wouldn't I take a high caliber person if I can get them? They're going to leave the place better than they found it. They're going to advance the cause. They're going to train new people. They're going to make things. They're going to make everything better. And yeah, they have other aspirations, but I mean, I look for that. I look for people who are out there thinking, like proving that they're out there thinking. They're writing. They're putting their thoughts down. They're blogging. They're podcasting. They're doing whatever. They're really engaged. They're really passionate about this thing that we all do. And that, to me, that's like, you can't buy that. That's phenomenal. I'd much rather have that guy than the guy who shows up, punches his his clock at the beginning of the day and checks out at 5 and is like, yeah, I did my work for the day. I'm done. I'm gonna go, kite surfing or whatever. I mean, I want people who love this stuff, love it 24/7, because they're going to be the most passionate. And yeah, that's why I hire you guys. Passion.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of companies. The good companies, I think, probably look for that. The ones you don't really want to work for, because we hear, like John hears from a lot of people who are just really terrified about their boss. Like they're afraid to even blog because they're afraid that they're going to lose their job.
The big companies have lawyers who whisper in their ear and tell them, hey, you need to shut this thing down. He's gonna leak something. He represents you. This is liability for you. I get it from the big company perspective. They've got too much to lose. They can't be as open, and they can't let their people run around. I mean, Apple is the extreme case. They, you are not allowed to talk about Apple Club. That's the first 99th rule of Apple Club. Nothing gets in or out. But small companies, we can do what the heck we want. We're not public. We're not really beholden to anybody. We can let our people be a little more free as long as they're not. If somebody blogged something at Trackabout that gave away something that I thought shouldn't be given away, I would talk to them. I might ask them to take it down.
Yeah.
You can't hurt the company and all the mouths that the company's feeding. So it's tough. It's a tough line to walk.
Yeah, it's interesting, like on also just like the developer or any employee perspective, like if you don't have the power to say no or to be able to do what you think is right, if you're living in fear of I'm going to get fired, then you're not going to operate as effectively as possible. Like if you're using your full faculty, where the reason why you're doing what you're doing is because you believe that it's right and then you're going to be much more effective. Whereas if you're living in fear, I mean, because again, I get a lot of comments from developers that are just living in fear, and I'm like, you got to have like a couple of months runway of savings so that you can, and you got to have your skills to a level that that you could get another job, and then you're going to be able to be more effective at your current job, because it's like scared money at the poker table, right? Scared money is the worst thing, because you're going to lose that money because you can't play to your maximum. You can't play full in. So, it's interesting, like looking at just so many developers that they don't get that, and they're just like so afraid of losing their job. And
my first job, I was horrible. I mean, I did well at my first job. I was working for a big consulting company, which is now Accenture, and I remember just all you'd ever learned was, please your masters, please your masters.
Yeah.
You want to do the best job you can because you're the little part of this cog in this big machine, and you're going to climb the ranks and do great things and, make your mark in the world. I mean, most people coming into the workforce feel like, man, this is the whole world is laid out in front of me. I gotta really do great, and you get nervous about disappointing everybody because you don't know enough about the world to know. And what you're doing, John, is educating them about what the real world is like and who really cares about you. Do people really care about how well you do when you join a company? Everybody's looking out for themselves first, maybe the company. Who knows? Some people are really, truly mentors, and they really care about the people who work for them. They want to see them do well and flourish. I feel like that's probably the minority.
Yeah.
And these are things you just don't know entering the workforce, and so you either got to learn it yourself, which is what I did, or you're going to get a mentor, or someone's going to teach it to you. And then you learn how things are, and you get really worked up over things that are way out of your control.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think for most employees, like, what would an employee have to do for you to think, man, that guy really screwed me? You know what I mean? Because we're like for me, when I was leaving, I was just like, I was honestly petrified about feeling like was letting you guys down, and feeling like, like you were gonna feel like, I was bailing on you guys and leaving you in the lurch. Like, what? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes people at Trackabout say like they feel like they're working for a family-run business, or a family. I mean, I don't know. We do love our people, and I do feel disappointed when one of you leaves, because I care about you and I want you. I want us all to keep working together. I'm also a part owner of the company, and I know that when good people leave, that hurts. And hiring people is hard, and I got to spin that wheel back up again and hire a replacement. That's pain for me. I mean, so yeah, I mean, it's I feel sad when people leave, but it's business, man. It's part of business. People leave, people come, people go. It's just the way it is. I don't know whether to feel proud or sad or whatever that you guys all felt like you were afraid of letting me know, or it's like, what am I, your father? I'm not your father. I'm a boss. I mean, you'll have lots of bosses. Now you're your own boss. It's funny. I don't know.
That's part of what I was saying earlier about having learned that through my consulting, from moving from business to business to business every month or two. I very quickly realized, you know what, this whole moving, this changing jobs, this doing something different isn't as terrifying as I used to think it was. When I joined Telerik, it was no big deal. It was a company that I really wanted to work for, and I was super happy to be there. But it wasn't that terrifying unknown anymore. It was, okay, well, I have another boss today, and then a year later, okay, I don't have a boss anymore. It became exactly like you were saying. It's, oh, well, that's just my boss. It's not my dad. It's not my mom. It's not my whatever. It's not somebody that's going to really be a part of my life anymore, except for the few good friends that I made there that I keep in touch with. And that's it. I'm moving on, and the people that matter don't mind, and the people that mind don't matter. And
one thing that's happened to me a couple of times is, like, when I've gone to leave, there's almost always going to be something that you feel like really guilty about. Yeah. So my job before Trackabout, my boss kind of went to the mat for me. Like, we just had our first baby. My boss kind of went to the mat for me, got me a raise, which I was really appreciative of. And, like, we had this chat, like, okay, I was trying to transfer within the company basically to get a raise, and he was like, well, I'll get you a raise and a title bump. So he did it. And then he's like, I don't want to. He's like, we can't. There's nothing official here, but I'd like to not be having this conversation again in 3 months or 6 months. And I was like, yeah, I'm not planning on going anywhere. And then, like, 7 months later, I'm on Stack Overflow Careers, and up pops this Trackabout thing, and I just applied for it out of the blue. And the week that I was interviewing with Trackabout, my boss had paid to send me to this all-day SharePoint training, and it was probably like, several $1,000s for this training. And, like, I literally applied for Trackabout the first day of this training. So it's like, then I go through this. Basically, it looks like I sat at home on this. I let him pay me $3,000 for me to sit at home, have a week's paid vacation while I interviewed, and then I came back and handed him my notice, and I felt awful. Like, it was not at all. And he was pretty cool about it. I think he believed me when I said, look, this is not what it looks like. It's really not what it looks like. But, like, I felt, and then with Trackabout, it was just like, I mean, I get, you're always going to be in the middle of some big project that's not, that's important. If you're important to the company at all, there's going to be some huge thing that you're working on that you're not going to finish.
Well, that's actually why I quit Telerik as quickly as I did, is because we were just about to start that big important project. And it was literally, if I don't quit now, then I am going to be an incredibly important part of what the company is doing in the next 6 months, and I don't want to do that to the company. Yeah. I'd rather leave now before that starts.
Also, so you're slightly impulsive.
A little bit. Mildly.
Well, no, Derek's plan was like, I'm just going to give my boss. Derek's plan was, I'm just going to give my boss a heads up.
Yeah.
So and that I'll be leaving in a few months.
Right.
And he comes back. He comes back. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, that was my 2-week notice.
Yeah, we're having this conversation because I remember we planned out. We're like, okay, yeah, Derek, sounds good. Like in 3 months, you like have enough money coming from this.
Yep.
Like, and so we're all like in the very next call next week. So I quit my job.
I think the worst part about that was not the timing in which things happened, but there was a transition in the company right as I was leaving, and that's what I didn't want to be a part of. I didn't want to. So what happened is I turned in my 2-week notice, and for the next 2 weeks there was a freeze on the company blog. Well, that was my entire job.
Yeah.
So for the next 2 weeks, as I turned in my 2-week notice and was trying to ride out the rest of this job, I wasn't allowed to do my job. So it was incredibly difficult to not look like a total jerk working from home, not doing anything for 2 weeks during the last 2 weeks of my working there. I had to really work hard to find things to do, and I ended up posting on my Los Techies blog a couple times about Telerik-related stuff, and I did a bunch of Stack Overflow questions, and all kinds of things, anything I could get my hands on relating to Telerik that wasn't what I normally did, just so I could say, look, I'm not just slacking off.
I quit one
That's
time.
funny.
I quit a job at HP right before they did like voluntary layoffs with a nice fat severance package.
Oh, man.
Oh.
Well done.
Yeah.
Did you take another job, John, or this might have to? Oh my gosh, this
I had
is
a
going to go
couple
in the
of
email series.
Yeah, I had a couple of entrepreneurial false starts when I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't want to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't quite learned the work hard ethic yet. You know what I mean? Like I just wanted to like join someone else's existing like efforts, or and somehow escape. Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know what I was thinking. Like I was immature, but yeah, that was. I got my real estate license. I was working at HP. Had a pretty good job, and then I had this like. I was going to join my buddy's business selling magic cards online, and
Like the board game or some other kind of scam, Vince?
No, he still has it. It's abugames.com, and he makes some pretty good money. He must be like $1 million revenue a year on magic cards.
Nice.
But I was the worst business partner ever because I was just lazy as hell. I was just like I didn't hardly do anything. I was just goofing off and just it was. I'm ashamed of it, but I had to learn. And then I got swift kick in the butt. It wasn't until like a little bit before Trackabout where I really started to learn that I needed to become a hustler if I wanted to actually accomplish anything real in life. You can only get by on your intellect and whatever for you can only take you so high, right? Your whatever natural skills that you have, at some point it's like you're just gonna have to put your nose to the grindstone and be willing to work hard and to give it 100%. Otherwise, you're never gonna get. You can only rise to a certain level, and so that was. But I had a couple of false starts where that was one of them. I quit the job, and then they're like, "Oh, severance. There's a nice 30K package. Ooh, you missed that, didn't you?"
Oh man! All right, well that's going to be an email for sure in our little sales sequence here.
Nice.
That's also when the gumballs. When I bought the gumballs, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to figure out some way to how do people make money?
I quit a job. My job before Trackabout was Rand McNally, and we were doing a .com. We'd started in '99, and the .com crash happened in '01. Although it was things unrelated to the .com crash that took out this .com. But basically, we were trying to give away more online maps and driving directions than anybody else could for free. And so the roof came in, and I started having to lay people off, and then everything was shrinking, and then we were shuttering this and shuttering that, and shutting everything down basically to like a maintenance mode crew. And I was bored out of my mind. And I'm making really good money, but I'm just so bored. I'm like, I really have nothing to do. Like, I could do this job in my sleep, and I'm just, for months, I'm just like, why don't I get out of here? Maybe I should go do something else. And so the guy who pulled me into the company, who was somebody I really respect, had been fired by the CEO or the board, so he was gone. So like my mentor, the guy I followed into the company, is gone. But I had a team and I had people working for me. Sorry, my family keeps calling. I hope nothing's going on. And I'm like, I'm done. I just can't. There's nothing else I can do here. Everything's constricting. There's no innovation. There's nothing fun or new happening. And so I actually negotiated an exit with severance. If I hung on for a certain period of the transition and got enough of this work done, they would give me the company standard severance, which was something like 6 months of severance.
Whoa.
Nice.
So I got out of there.
Nice.
It was awesome. And then I was like, then I just started. I'd like, oh, I'll just take 3 months and just have some fun and figure out what's next. And I'm like hosting open mics, and I'm like recording people in my home studio, and I'm just doing music nonstop and loving it and having a ball, and just, that was a life for a while until Trackabout came knocking on my door. My old workmate Tim pulled me into Trackabout. I was thinking I was going to start a recording studio. I was going to make a recording studio, and then I realized like the way that you make $1 million in music recording is you start with $2 million.
That's about the truth of it.
I love it.
Nice.
Oh man, good stuff.
I feel like my presence has probably kept you guys from the mastermind style stuff that you usually engage in.
No, this is all good.
Fun.
It's all good.
We've had half a dozen other guests on, and it's always just let's talk about whatever the guest is an expert at. So this is all good. We'll get back to the usual boring numbers next week.
Chuck, you need to maybe take a turn through Trackabout so you feel like you have something. To
Yeah,
share with the
totally.
group.
He could come in. He could totally keep that albacore humming along.
He'll build you an app for the Apple TV to scan barcodes.
Actually, it'd be pretty awesome though. Actually, would be the Trackabout podcast. You could get Chuck to like put it on his
there you
network.
go.
It would start getting depressing, John, when we have like more ex-Trackabout employees than current Trackabout employees. That's when I'd be like, what am I doing wrong?
Well, I mean, you could do an industry-specific podcast about the gas industry. That would be probably actually a good marketing.
I don't know. You guys know the Traction book, the guy from DuckDuckGo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
So for the last year, I've been like taking a strong hand with digital marketing, like inbound digital marketing, and so I ran the marketing team and everybody through kind of that exercise, and it's interesting to see like how many things we were already doing. Like, so you're only supposed to pick like 3 and then do one and just hammer it until it stops delivering for you. And it's like we're doing like 8 different things on the list, and we brainstormed like 50 more. Like, we're doing so much. Like, as a small company, we're doing way too much. Podcast would be like way down the list. I think our dirty little industries that we serve, and that's not pejorative. It's just like they're like industrial companies, and I don't think podcasts is really on their radar.
What is working for you guys lately, if you don't mind, if you can share?
Sure. I mean, I could talk a little bit about. We've been having a lot of success. Like, I did an SEO tune-up. I knew nothing. Like, I literally knew nothing. We'd redesigned our corporate website like 3 years ago, and it was running along for like almost 2 years, just delivering zip, not a zilch. Like, we would only come up first in Google results for an exact match on something like gas cylinder tracking. And so I basically started mainlining like Moz blog and all these different the good resources, Backlinko and all these other things. Just try like learning what are we doing wrong, and I just started righting the ship and fixing all the broken things and running SEO audits with like SEMrush and then we started doing keyword monitoring and just seeing ourselves climbing in the rankings. And then I learned, there's a thing called the landing page. Maybe I should look into that. So we're starting to make landing pages. We're trying different little experiments. But I don't know. Just the beginning of this week, like 6 really hot leads just fell into our lap, just coming in through the Contact Us page.
Oh wow!
Requesting a demo. Like, we're getting really good businesses finding us, interested in us, and we're closing deals faster than we ever have before.
Nice.
A large part of that is having our offering now on smartphone, which is we used to have a sales cycle of like 1 to 2 years. Like you talk to an industry and they'd be like, yeah, well, we got to plan the budget, we got to do this, we got to do that, because there was this large upfront hardware purchase.
Oh yeah.
We had these rugged handhelds. We were running like Windows Mobile, old Windows Mobile OSs, and it would really slow down the sales cycle. You had to make a large upfront purchase. And now with us having migrated a lot of that functionality to smartphone, customers can sign up and get going really quickly. So we're like, call to close in 2 to 6 weeks nowadays.
Wow.
So that's really changed our business. We're putting a lot more thought behind digital marketing in general in a lot of different areas. I'm trying to think of other specifics, and I'm also trying to suppress a cough here.
The master of mute.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know.
I love mutes. What was I talking about? I don't know. So yeah, just so this is a weird one. I don't know if I want to reveal a lot of secrets. I don't think competitors are listening, but we started Googling our keywords I thought customers would be looking for. Obvious thing to do. And this one site keeps coming up. And I'm like, what is this site? Capterra.com. What is Capterra? It looks like Yahoo. It looks like a directory listing from days of yore. And I'm like, and there were like 3 sites that purport to be enterprise software directories for different categories of enterprise software. And they have listings and they have descriptions, and basically it's pay-per-click. You pay to turn your read more button into a view website button. And then basically, it allows them to link to your site by paying them per click. They'll link to your site instead of just giving you a blurb. So you register yourself, you fill out all the forms, you put yourself into these different enterprise software categories, and then you turn on pay-per-click, and you can get customers to come in and review you. So you end up getting like 4- and 5-star reviews. So you amass all these reviews. You invite all your customers in to review you on this site, and they just keep coming up top of SEO. Like they know what the heck they're doing with SEO. Whoever they are, whatever they've learned. They know SEO. They're ranking high on all these enterprise SaaS keywords, and I'm like, okay, I hate paying, for what I ought to be able to do for SEO, but they're always showing up, and I want to be there. So I like, okay, we'll put a budget on it. Excuse me, and it started working a bit, and then 2 weeks later they got bought by Gartner.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
I'm like,
I guess they know what they're doing. Yeah.
Picked the winner. I picked the winner. There's like 2 other ones that are copycats, and they didn't get bought by Gartner. So I felt good at least putting my money towards the winner. I'm like, hey, I actually,
Larry, you're ready to go back into the stock market, man.
I know. I'm picking winners, man. I could do this.
Oh, speaking of which, remember was it 8 weeks ago when I said I was shorting Apple?
Yes.
Oh,
man.
Missed that. I called that one, didn't I?
I don't know what happened with Apple.
Oh,
They're in
Apple
the toilet.
Tanking now. They're just. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Done, Cordy.
The bubble.
Yeah. So actually, I had pulled up my traction methodology spreadsheet. I thought maybe it would come up. It's a neat exercise. I downloaded, somebody made the spreadsheet online for 1 to 5. How promising is this? 1 to 5. How much effort does it take? What's your lead or customer acquisition cost? How many customers are available? What's the total addressable market? You put all these factors in, and then you calculate where your time is best spent. Actually, one of them would be if we could get a Wikipedia page published about our company.
Yeah.
I would really like to get a Wikipedia page published about our company. But I don't want to. I know that if I try to do it myself, I'm going to get spanked.
Yeah.
You just can't.
You got to do some media, but you got to do some put a bunch of cylinders in some building and blow them up or something.
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
It actually does. In India, it just seems to happen all the time. Hey guys, I appreciate the opportunity to sit here and chat with you, but I do have to go bounce to. We're having a phone board meeting today for Trackabout, so I got to go.
Somebody's got a big important job.
Yeah,
I gotta go talk to the board.
Talk to the board. Go make your millions.
But no, thank you. It was really fun hanging out with all you guys, and Chuck, it was great to meet you.
You too.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks,
See
Larry.
you, Larry.
All right, take care, all.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, Larry.
Bye.
That was pretty fun.
Yeah. I do need to get going as well, and since I started this thing, we should probably wrap it up so I can hit stop on the recording.
Sounds good.
So, anybody got thoughts for the week?
Man, this is an abrupt shift.
Yes, it is. Suddenly
Yes.
we're all leaving. John, you said something earlier, right at the beginning, and I can't remember what it was, but I thought it would have been a perfect thought for the week, and now I wish I remembered what it was.
About the uncertainty?
Yeah, it was either about uncertainty or something related to fear.
Okay, I think I mentioned, and that's a good one. I'd mentioned that from the Tony Robbins seminar, the one thing that stuck with me, which was the amount of now I've lost it.
Your life happiness is
Yeah.
inversely proportional to the amount of uncertainty you have, or something.
Yeah, the happiness in your life is directly proportional to the amount of uncertainty you're comfortably able to live with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So if you're able to increase that comfort level of having uncertainty, your life will be better. And I think our default behavior is to turn that down, to try and control things as much as possible, to nail things down and make it as safe and to have as little uncertainty as possible. But instead, what we really should be doing is becoming the kind of people that can live with a high degree of uncertainty, because then we live better lives, exciting lives, and so. Yeah, we're more stoic. all that I have is within me now, right? It's like everything that you need is within you. It's not all these other things that you think are important. So as you're growing as a person, that is the thing that is going to give you the stability. Whereas your environment around you, you should be comfortable with it being changing and being, because that's the thing that creates excitement and really joy in life. So there you go. Follow that up.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot. I've been thinking of this week about systems and habits again. So I'm still sort of struggling. I really need to get into this guest posting rhythm to start driving some traffic, and so I'm basically like I'm in this weird place where I want to be blogging and doing guest posting and stuff, but I have this hurdle that I have to get over, which is I actually have to get to the point where I have a relationship with an editor or a few editors, and they'll just take my submissions basically, and I don't have, because right now I'm in this weird spot where I have to like pitch. I'm like approaching all these different editors, and so I'm kind of like thinking about the system, like, okay, well, I can't actually publish any guest posts right now. But what I can do is I can get into the habit of, I'm going to start writing a guest post pitch every day. So like I've got, and it's actually a lot of work. It's actually like probably most of the work of actually writing the post. I have to write the headline, which is always the hardest part, a summary, and then like some bullet points about what I'm going to cover. Well, that's pretty much the whole thing, right? So if I've got 20 or 30 of these things in the can, then every time I find a new outlet that I want to pitch, I can just grab them and throw them into an email and shoot them over to somebody. So I'm going to start doing like one of those a day. Like I'll do my daily email, and then I'm going to do one pitch, and then I'll have like this backlog of ideas that I can just plow through when I actually start getting some yeses from people.
Yeah, I like that approach. Also, just the idea of also like you're affecting what you can affect, and then by taking the small step, you're going to move the ball forward.
Right. Well, and I also realized it's a system that'll get me into a habit of, like, I'm not very disciplined usually when I approach a blog post. So by having to come up with all that stuff ahead of time, I've done all the hard work, and actually writing it will be pretty easy.
Yep.
For me, it's just.
Sorry, go ahead, Jack.
Things have been really crazy, as you can imagine, with the conference and everything else. We didn't get a whole lot of time to talk about it, but that's fine. There's always next week. But just taking opportunity. When somebody tells you that they have a problem, when somebody needs a solution that you have the opportunity to go and appear. Like I'm going to be on the Code Newbie podcast here pretty soon. And, I've got this book that I've kind of outlined and half written. And so just, the next 2 weeks I'm just planning on focusing on that and just, getting the book done, or at least in a state where I can go sell it. and just being in a position where I can take advantage of the opportunities that come my way is kind of where I'm at right now. So just think about it. The JS Remote Conf has opened doors for me. Some of these other things have opened doors for me, and just finding the occasion and being ready for these opportunities to hit, I think is really important. That's kind of my thought. I don't know if it made sense, but that's what I'm thinking.
So for me, I think I'm kind of pulling together the things that we talked about with Larry and what John was talking about at the beginning with fear and everything. And I think the thing that you said earlier, I finally remembered, John, was embrace your fear and really just tackle it head on.
Right.
And I think that's an important aspect for entrepreneurs, especially. I look back at what I was doing with Signal Leaf, and I can very directly say that I was afraid of doing a lot of things for Signal Leaf and with Signal Leaf. I was afraid of putting time into it, and there was a lot of fear associated with it. And I'm glad I shut it down. In this case, I don't think it was wrong for me to not face those fears. I think the fear of shutting it down should have been tackled sooner, but the fears around the business, I don't, not always. You don't always have to face your fears by directly attacking them and hitting them head on by getting on that airplane that you're terrified of being on. Sometimes facing the fear is walking away from a situation. But I think facing your fears and embracing change and all those things associated with it, doing the difficult work because you know it's the right thing to do, these things all kind of go hand in hand. And I think it's an important part of moving forward and growing, especially as an entrepreneur, being able to face your fears, whether that fear is doing the work or whether the fear is letting the work go and shutting it down.
Yeah. Your thought was better than mine.
All right, guys.
All right. We'll see you all next week.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.